I don't know what it is about these router bits. They stick in the collets when you try to get them out, and it takes excessive force to get them to come loose. And yet when you put them in there, no matter how much you tighten them up, it seems like they pull their way down out of the collet and ruin your work when you're routing something. A little over a month and a half ago, my wife slipped on the ice out here and fell down, broke her leg. This ice has been treacherous around here this year. We were able to find a orthopedic surgeon in Ketchikan to bolt her back together, so we flew down there a few days later and she had surgery and had her leg put back together. Now this place here is not exactly handicapped friendly. We've been comfortably living in this cabin for a little over 20 years. It's nice and cozy in there, everything's tight and easy to get around to, but there's no indoor toilet in there. And the bedroom is upstairs, and there's a real steep set of stairs going up there to get to the bedroom. I built it 20 years ago when we were both still young and pretty spry. The outhouse is about 100-foot walk or 150-foot walk up the hill. And of course, it's rainy and icy and cold out there on the gravel road, so that's no place to be fumbling around when your foot's broke or you're handicapped. So we needed to find some place for my wife to stay during her recuperation. And I talked to her a couple of things. I told her if she should put an ad in and see if she could find an apartment to rent for a couple of months or a place to house sit or something like that. But she told me she'd already made arrangements with her friend Kelly to stay at her place. Now, her and Kelly have been friends for a long time. Kelly worked for my wife when she was managing the Parks and Rec department, the pool, and Kelly worked for her part-time as a lifeguard, and both of her daughters worked for her part-time as a lifeguard too. Anyway, they've been really good friends for many years. In fact, a few years ago, Kelly had to have a hip replacement surgery, and Judy went with her down to Seattle and spent the time with her down there while she was having her surgery and recuperating enough to come home. Well, anyway, Kelly offered her to stay at her place until she could get around. She has a nice house on the water down here. We went over to it for Christmas. She has a little bedroom upstairs, and it's close to the bathroom and easy chair, and everything's right there on one floor. So Judy's been staying with her for the last 6 weeks. Well, she's getting to feeling better now, and I knew once she got to feeling better she was going to want to come home. Well, I'm going to try to get ready to make the place ready for her to come home. And one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to put handrails on the staircase going upstairs, so she's got something to hang on to get up those stairs. So they're a narrow, steep set of stairs going up there because there's not a whole lot of room in that cabin. Well, what I've got here is a couple of yellow cedar 2x6s. These are milled up a couple, 3 years ago, and we planed them all down and everything. These were going to be the original deck boards for the porch, and then we changed the design on the porch and to make it 10 foot instead of 8 foot, and these are all cut for 8-foot porch. And no matter how much I tried, I couldn't make them stretch out to 10 feet, so I couldn't even get them to 9 feet. So anyway, they've been sitting in the woodshed for a while, in the drying shed for a while, and they're all nice, pretty wood. Well, I drug those out here the other day to use them to put underneath that planer when we moved it, put rollers under them and stuff, and used them that. And then I dug out a couple of 2x6 or 2x4s, and these are wet. Well, I cleaned the stove out yesterday and got a fire going in it. Oh, I can put those 2x4s over there next to the stove with the fire going in it and get them dried out. They've been in the woodshed for a long time, and the ends of them stuck out a little bit and they got kind of wet. I've got a real nice setup for my wood shaper to make handrails. It's got a couple of different shaper knives and stuff to shape up and make real nice handrails, but I don't want to dig the shaper out right now and dig those out and make these handrails. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those 2x4s and I'm going to attach those to the framing in the cabin, and then I'm going to take these 2x6s and attach those to the 2x4s so they'll stick up 2 inches above the 2x4s. I've got the router out, and I'm going to put a round over bit in the router and round over the top edges of these boards so they're a little smoother to hang on to. Anyway, I went and dug my router out. I got a 1/2 inch collet there and a round over bit. I guess I better go over and get some earplug and get set up and round over the 2 edges. I'm just going to do the top edges of these. I'm not going to do the bottom edges of them. All right, that's pretty good. I think that'll be real good. That'll be a nice hand grip on there. Take a little sandpaper and sand this down, smooth it out some more, and that'll feel really good. Got a little bit of tear out on this one over here. Down here I'll have to make up some glue and some sawdust and fill that in and smooth that out, but otherwise this looks pretty good. I'm happy with that. That'll do what I meant it to. I'll put the router away and probably be 4 or 5 years before I use it again, if I remember how. Anyway, I get a little sandpaper on those and get those sanded down a little bit. They're going to be cut to length. They're longer than what they need to be, but that's all right. And then these boards over here by the stove, they're going to take a little bit to get those dried out to where I want to use them in the house. But they're drying out. Get that fire going in the stove and get it warmed up over there. Get those 2 boards dried out. There they are there. I got one of them laying across the stove and then one of them leaning up against the stove stack there. That's the start of a handrail, the start of bringing my wife home. My regular camera is still foggy, so I'm going to try this with a video camera, handheld with a cell phone camera, I should say. Well, anyway, I've got, let's see if we can see it here. There we go, right here. A couple of places where it tore out, the grain tore out when I was using the router on that board. I thought there was some more places than that, but it's just those 2 spots. There's some other spots here where I thought it might have tore out, but that's just where there's discoloration in the wood. So that's not so bad. I'm going to see if I can fix those up. What I've got here, I saved out a whole bunch of the sawdust from when I was cutting all those boards, the yellow cedar boards with the table saw. I've got a lot of sawdust, fine sawdust there. Yeah, I've got some tight bond. I don't need waterproof exterior interior glue on this, but this is what was handy. So I've got all that sawdust there. I'll just sprinkle a bunch of this. And a popsicle stick and mix that up and make a putty out of that, paste out of that. Then I'll use that for filler. I'll probably maybe make some more of it. I don't know. We'll see how it works here. I'll get it over there on that board and put it in there in those grooves and see if I can fill those in. Okay, I spread that stuff in there, smeared it in pretty good. Make sure and squeeze the glue out so that it got into the pores of the wood itself. It looks pretty rough now, but once it gets sanded down, that'll blend in pretty good. So we got a couple of spots there. There was some tear out. So it's not just cosmetic on a piece like this, because you're going to be running our hands up and down that piece. And so if the wood's tore out like that, you could pick up a splinter of it from it if you run your hand down it and catch the rough spot on it. So the glue squeezing out of that and smoothing that stuff out should stabilize all of that so there's no tear out on it. No splinters. Well, now I have to wait for that to dry, and it's cold in here, so it's going to take probably overnight. In fact, I don't know whether it's going to cure right or not because it's going to freeze tonight. Find out, I guess. But anyway, that'll be better. Now I got Judy's little mouse sander here. I've got some sandpaper for it. I'm going to go ahead and start sanding that other piece down, get it smoothed up, prettied up, and get it ready to put on. I'm running over these boards with a sander a little bit, and I'm starting out with 60 grit paper on there. Even though those boards were taken really nice care of, I milled them up here on this mill and dried them up in the basement for a winter and then we planed them down and took real good care of them. Once we decided that they were not going to be used for the porch, we pulled them out of and stacked them up in the wood shed, in the lumber shed, and they've kind of just stuck around there, but they've got marks on them, a little bit of weathering on places where they got in the sun or the rain a little bit, and some handling marks and stuff on them. So I'm just sanding those down now. Now this one here on this left side is not going to be perfect. Down there on that end, it got out in the weather a little bit, sunshine or rain or something on it, and it got a little brown. So the only way to get that out of there completely would be run it through the planer again. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to get them cleaned up a little bit here. And then the bottom edge, where I didn't round it over with the roundover bit, I'm just breaking that edge a little bit with the sandpaper. I'm going to start out with 60 grit, and then we'll go to 100 grit and a little finer stuff there and get that smoothed down. So I've got this one pretty good. Well, now I'm going to tip it up on this edge here and do this top edge and smooth that all out there. There's a little edge there where that blade, that router bit got down just a little bit lower, or in just a little bit farther in places. And then this one I've got to wait on it until the glue dries on it. But anyway, we'll make them look pretty. Then I'll probably oil them or something. I'm not going to stain them with that stain like we do on the outside porches. This is going to be inside. I guess you could just leave them plain and they'll just pick up dirt and oil and stuff off the hands from using them, but maybe I'll put some linseed oil on them or something to start with. We'll see. Get them cleaned up and get them ready to use anyway. Well, I got the top edge of that one looking pretty good. That looks pretty nice. The other one I'm going to have to wait to do any more on it until that putty dries on there, the glue. Oh, so not till tomorrow. This one's just about done. I'll get this one sanded down on this face over here and round over this sharp edge on the bottom a little bit, and that'll look pretty good. So I'm making sanding dust now. If I put the little vacuum up on that sander, I could collect that sanding dust, and that would be a lot better to use to make the putty than the sawdust out of the table saw. But I didn't have any of that when I started that, so we didn't get any of that sawdust used. I used this stuff from the table saw, which will be fine. I got the board on the right pretty much sanded down with 60 grit paper. And I got the one side on the one on the right done. That's the one that's got the filler in it that's got to dry. Oh, I could switch over to the 100 grit paper now and finish or work on that one again, some more, the one on the right. But it's freezing out here. It got pretty cold. It must be 30 degrees or lower or something. And my fingers are just about numb. My hands are about froze. So I'm going to quit for the night. And I've got to wait to do any more on this other one until that filler stuff that I made up dries out. And I'm just afraid it's not going to dry out here with it freezing, so I'm going to go stand that up by the stove. I've got a fire in the wood stove, and even though it doesn't heat the building up, it is warm over there beside the wood stove. So I'm going to go stand this up by the wood stove, and at least that'll keep it from freezing and until it cures up. And so tomorrow I should be able to come out and sand that down and finish those up. I'm just getting ready to go to bed, and I come out here to the hangar, put another chunk of wood, a couple pieces of wood in the stove, and I was just going to do that, and then I decided I'd go ahead and sand this board some more. So I'd sanded it down with 60 grit earlier, and then I just took some 100 grit and made a pass over it with that all the way around, and some 150 grit, and boy, that's a beautiful piece of wood now. Nice and smooth. It's beautiful. So that one will make a great handrail, and I'm not sure whether I'm going to put two handrails up, one on each side of the staircase or just one up, but I'm going to get both of them ready just in case I put two of them up. I want to make sure and make it so that my wife can get up and down those stairs easy enough. Anyway, that one is going to be beautiful. That one was going to work out just great in the clunky old cabin. It's almost too good for that. So I've got the fire stoked up. It's going to stay warm in here for a couple more hours anyway, enough to dry that wood out some more and cure that glue. And I took the glue in the house so it doesn't freeze up in the cabin, so it doesn't freeze up in case I need it again. I leave it out here, it'll freeze, and then that'll ruin it. Anyway, that's it for tonight. I'm going to go back in and go to bed, and then we'll come out here and work on some more tomorrow after that glue sets up. I'll go ahead and finish sanding that other piece. And I'll probably get the belt sander out and sand those two 2x4s down to smooth those up. They're not going to be seen, but I'd still clean them up a little bit. Well, here we go. This is where I put that patch in there, the filler in there on that, where the gouge was on that, and that turned out pretty good once it smoothed down. I thought maybe I was going to have to do it over again, but it's I put some more in. It's typical like body work when you put Bondo in. A lot of times you'll put it in, sand it down, and then it's going to be low and you have to add some more to it, but that's going to be pretty good. Now that is going to be a little bit dark. It probably would have been better if I'd used white glue instead of yellow glue, but I used what I had. And then if I'd used some of this fine sawdust from sanding instead of the stuff that came out of the table saw when I cut that wood. But actually that doesn't look too bad at all. It fills that in pretty good and stabilizes that cut. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so that, like I said, that fills in the little gouge that was in there from the tear out, and it's nice and smooth. Just got a little color to it. 100 years from now, nobody will know the difference. I'm happy with that. And the other one down there, it was a little gouge down there a little bit farther. There it is. Yeah, there it is. So that one filled in pretty nice. Just a little dark. So anyway, there's still some work to be done on this board. This side still needs to be sanded down with 60 grit, and then we got to go over that whole thing with finer sandpaper and stuff and get it all sanded down. But that is not too bad. That's looking pretty good. I got my fire stoked up here. I got a couple other little things to do out here, and then we'll go get some breakfast and get dressed. I wasn't sure that second board was going to turn out as nice as the first board because it had a lot more staining and stuff on it. But once I got it sanded down, it's just as pretty. Well, I just got done with that. I sanded it down went through the progressive sanding steps with a 60 grit, 100 grit, and 150. And that's as far as I'm going to go with just 150. But it looks pretty darn good. I think those are beautiful boards. I just wiped them down a little bit with a little bit of mineral spirits just to kind of get all of the fine dust and stuff off of them to show their true colors. And they'll probably darken up a little bit now as they age, and once I start wiping some oil in them, some finish oil in them and stuff, they'll probably darken up a little bit, but they're going to stay pretty close to that. So this patch down here, go down here and take a look at it. That's not so bad, doesn't hardly show up. The other spot down here almost sanded out with just a little bit of the filler material in it. This spot right here is going to show up a little bit, but it's nice and smooth there and there's nothing to catch your fingers on, so that is pretty nice. I think that'll be good enough for who it's for, since it's for me. It's not perfect, but we shoot for perfect. Perfect or better. It's not quite perfect, but it'll be pretty nice for the cabin. Alright, that's about enough for one day here. I didn't get a whole lot done out here today. I worked on this a little bit this morning, and then I had some other things that I needed to do. I got back in it for a little bit this afternoon or this evening, but it's dark out now and getting cold again. Didn't warm up much today, but fingers are getting cold again, so I'm going to quit for a while for the evening. My son just got back from running the dog, so go visit with him for a little while and call it a day pretty much. those boards are pretty nice. So the other two boards, the 2x4s, are still sitting over there by the stove, and I've still got a fire going in the stove to dry them out. And they're dried out pretty good now. We'll let them go a little bit overnight now. I brought the belt sander down here with a couple belts on it, and even though those are going to be where they're not going to be seen, I'm going to go ahead and touch them up, clean them up a little bit, polish them up before I put them on. So we'll do that tomorrow. Today was my wife's physical therapy day. I had a couple other things going on, so I didn't get in on this project here. I didn't get much done around here. I was just in the house getting ready for bed. I thought I'd come out and check on a couple of things, and I saw these 2x4s sitting here, and that I got the belt sander down here yesterday and some fresh belts for it and stuff. I just couldn't stand it. I decided I better get something done, so I've run those two 2x4s. I run the belt sander over them and got them cleaned up, got the nails out of them. This one long one here had a couple screws in it that I got out of it. I got it smoothed out and the weathering off of it. Both of them have been used for other things, bracing and shelves or something like that, and they were kind of weathered. Well, anyway, I got those smoothed up, cleaned up a little bit, and they're a lot nicer than they were, so we shouldn't be able to pull any splinters off of those. They're going to be screwed into the wall, and then these two yellow cedar will be screwed onto those for handrails, so they're going to be down below where they're going to be touched or anything anyway, or seen or anything anyway. But I just wanted to get them cleaned up a little bit before we stuck them in the house. They look better than they did. They're not perfect, but I didn't want to take a chance on running them through the planer because they both had metal in them, and you never know, even if you get it all, what you think you get it all out, there's always a piece left in there or something, and it don't take much to ruin a planer blade. Well, anyway, all of that stuff is cleaned up now. I can start putting it in the cabin, putting the handrail in the cabin. Like I said, my wife had her physical therapy today, and today was the first time she started weight bearing on her foot. She started walking around, and she was real excited about that. She was walking around putting a little bit of weight on that foot and doing some more exercises with it. And the physical therapist said she's coming along just fine, and the doctor said she could put whatever she could bear on it to start with. So it's going to take a couple more weeks before she gets around to where she can hobble around full-time on that foot or part-time on that foot. But it's exciting. Maybe I can get her home here in the not too distant future. So if I get those stair rails up there, that'll be a big help towards that. Well, anyway, now it's time to go to bed for sure. Way past time to go to bed.